Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. I'm Erin Ute. Tonight we'll give you all your international, national, and local news. Find out more about what Prime Minister just paid a visit to President Zelensky in Ukraine. Also, learn more about a new disease that is affecting North American birds and what state is fighting a large brush fire. Lastly, hear what steps Pittsburgh is taking to better both our environmental impact and our police force. All this and more coming up on Newsnight. The defense ministers of Japan and the Philippines agreed last Thursday to bolster security cooperation and expand joint drills between their forces as they share concerns about China's increasingly active military actions in their region. Japan Defense Minister Nobu Kishi and his Philippine counterpart, Delfin Lorenzana, also shared concerns about Russia's invasion of Ukraine and its impact in the Indo-Pacific, and noted that any attempts to change the status quo by force is unacceptable. Japan's defense military said in a statement that avoided identifying China by name. Japan has significantly expanded joint drills with the United States and other partners, including Australia, India, France, Britain, and Germany, that shares its concerns about China's assertion of the territorial claims in the region, which has some of the world's busiest sea lanes. Japan is especially concerned about Chinese military and Coast Guard activity in the East China Sea near the Japan-controlled Senkaku Islands, which China also claims and calls Diaoyu. Last Thursday, Japan's defense ministry said it spotted a Chinese Y-9 electronic warfare aircraft flying over the islands, although it did not violate Philippine military. Kishi and Lorenzana also agreed to increase cooperation in defense equipment and technology transfer between the two countries. Tokyo and Manila agreed in 2020 on the Japanese export of air raid systems to Philippine military. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson traveled to Kyiv on Saturday, April 9th, to meet Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Johnson is the first G7 leader to travel to Ukraine following the invasion of Russia in late February. The two met to discuss British aid sent to the country in the form of 120 armored vehicles as well as anti-ship missiles. Following their meeting, the leaders openly walked the street of Kyiv to tour the destruction from the Russian forces. Flanked by armored soldiers, the walk was symbolic of the security of the capital city, which the Russians have, as of yet, failed to capture. Zelensky and Johnson held a joint press conference where the Ukrainian president asked for more aid from foreign nations, stating that he hopes, quote, the other democratic Western countries should follow the example of the United Kingdom, end quote. Authorities have begun an investigation in Spain after discovering quite the eclectic collection. Reporter Sam Hydeman has more details about the collection and what it's worth.
The Spanish Civil Guard is currently investigating an individual for their private taxidermy collection. The collection was found in Betera, a small town north of Valencia, Spain. Officers discovered and identified a total of 1,090 taxidermied animals, which filled up two warehouses that covered more than 50,000 square meters. Species of cheetah, leopard, polar bear, and over 200 ivory elephant tusks were in this extensive collection, which was valued at 29 million euros, more than $31 million. Of the discovered animals, a total of 405 were species that are considered protected by the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna. One species that was found in the warehouse, the scimitar oryx, was declared extinct in the year 2000. Spanish officials are investigating whether or not the individual has any documentation justifying the possession of these animals.
There have been several Russian cyber attacks on the U.S. economy with the war in Ukraine recently. The FBI field office in Pittsburgh has been credited with saving thousands of small businesses' computer systems, as they have identified and blocked a network of Russian bots before they could cause any damage. This has been a part of the Justice Department crackdown on illegal Russian activity involving the seizure of assets from rich associates of Vladimir Putin, known as oligarchs. FBI Director Christopher Wray said, quote, "We removed malware from devices used by thousands of mostly small businesses for network security all over the world and then shut down the door Russians had used to get into them," end quote. This cyber attack was actually initiated by the Russian government itself by the military intelligence unit known as GRU. Special agent in charge Mike Norwal is now asking all businesses to contact the FBI if they see any suspicious cyber activity. Coming up after the break, we'll have all your national news. Find out what state had another deadly shooting. Also, hear about the brush fires in San Antonio. We'll be right back.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, and welcome back to NewsNight. Most of the student body of the Pittsburgh Public School.
Some of the United States allies.
Thursday, the FBI was seen raiding.
Let's get started with today's forecast.
Today's high will only reach about 31 degrees.
It's looking a little cooler than we've seen in the past few weeks.
All this and more,
All this and more
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
coming up on NewsNight.
coming up on NewsNight.
Since Justice Stephen Breyer announced his retirement, President Biden has conducted a rigorous process to identify his replacement. Biden sought a candidate with exceptional credentials, unimpeachable character, and unwavering dedication to the rule of the law. The president sought an individual who is committed to equal justice under the law and who understands the profound impact that the Supreme Court's decision have on the lives of the American people. That is why the president nominated Ketanji Brown Jackson to serve as the next justice on the Supreme Court, becoming the first black woman to do so. Judge Jackson has served judge for the U.S. Court of Appeals of the D.C. Circuit, judge on the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, vice chair of the U.S. Sentencing Commission, and has been a public defender and Supreme Court clerk. The vote was confirmed 53-47 in the Senate. Only 3 Republicans joined all 50 Democrats in supporting Judge Jackson. She will take the bench for official duty on the first day of the new court's term on October 3rd. A deadly avian influenza virus has arrived in North America, infecting many wild and domesticated bird populations. The virus is believed to have been brought to North America by migratory birds in the past few months. The virus travels through wild bird species and finds its way to domesticated bird populations being raised for poultry. Chickens and turkeys quickly die from the disease, but waterfowl carry it in long distances. Around 24 million poultry birds have already died as a result of the spreading influenza virus, either from catching the infectious virus or being killed to prevent the spread through entire farms. The virus has also affected over 40 wild bird species. Even North American zoos are being affected by this virus. Many zoos are having to bring their birds indoors to avoid contact with the wildlife. The virus is spread through the bird droppings and nasal discharge, which can find its way into zoo habitats when wild birds fly over them or squeeze into enclosures, and can be even tracked in by mice. Many zoos are home to endangered bird species that need to be protected from the virus to keep the species alive. The virus may not disappear anytime soon, as it's prevailed in Europe for many years. There was another deadly shooting in the United States over this weekend. This shooting, deemed to be a targeted attack, left many people injured and a few people died. Reporter Addie Deal has the details on the story.
A shooting in an Iowa nightclub this past Sunday has now officially been named a targeted incident. The Taboo nightclub and lounge had about 150 people in the club when a single shooter fired almost 24 shots into the crowd, causing the attendants to leave in a panic. Police were luckily nearby responding to a separate incident, and when they arrived at the scene, there were 2 dead and 10 injured. The injuries ranged between minor and critical, with the 2 casualties being a man and a woman whose names have not yet been released. The shooter was not found, and there is no apparent motive for the shooting, but police believe it is an isolated incident. This incident continues a trend in violence in Cedar Rapids, being the 4th and 5th homicides in the area during 2022. Mayor Tiffany O'Donnell spoke out against the incident and called for an end to violence in the city, saying, quote, "This is not who we are. This is not Cedar Rapids. Today, I challenge all of us to meet the need before us. We must be the change," end quote. The investigation is ongoing, and police are asking for any information regarding the event.
A brush fire near San Antonio, Texas, has burned more than 3,005 acres in just a few days. Texas officials had warned of potential wildfires due to the dry weekends coming up with warm temperatures. The fire began on Saturday around 2:30 p.m. and was easily spread by windy weather. Plumes of smoke from the wildfire can be seen from miles away. There was not a mandatory evacuation since the fire is in a forest far enough away from human structures. However, some locals voluntarily evacuated. Around 150 people chose to evacuate the area, but were quickly allowed to return home by Sunday night. There have been no deaths or injuries caused by the fire or any threat to nearby structures. According to fire officials from Texas A&M Forest Service, about 88% of the fire has been contained. Coming up after the break, we'll have all your local Pittsburgh news. Find out what a few Point Park students have been working on this semester and how you can be involved. Also, hear about some changes that the city of Pittsburgh is making to the police force. Stay tuned. Federal prosecutors say the man accused of killing 11 people at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh's Squirrel Hill should go to trial in the fall. But defense attorneys for the accused gunman, Robert Bowers, told the newly assigned judge in the case last Wednesday that they do not anticipate being ready for the trial until 2023. The mass shooting happened on October 27, 2018. U.S. District Judge Robert Covile held a video conference last Wednesday as he gets acclaim to the complex death penalty case, which now has more than 700 entries on the court docket. He asked parties on both sides to make an effort to create a realistic timeline for the case, which was due the following Tuesday. Bowers, 49, is charged in a 63-count indictment of entering the Tree of Life Synagogue on Wilkins Avenue during morning services and opening fire. The synagogue housed 3 different congregations. Federal prosecutors said Bowers was motivated by anti-Semitic rhetoric and expressed those thoughts online in the months leading up to the attack. He also spoke out against Jewish people after he was wounded in a shootout that morning with SWAT officers and again while being treated for his injuries. Several family members of the victims attended the video hearing, the first held by Covile, as he was appointed to the case at the end of January. as former senior U.S. District Judge Donetta Ambrose was set to retire. Bowers waived his appearance for the proceeding, as he has done for everyone since February 11, 2019, including a 2-day suspension in October. The judge did not comment or rule on the request to postpone the trial until 2023. On Tuesday, April 12th, Point Park students, in partnership with the League of Women Voters, hosted a town hall for the candidates running for Pennsylvania's 12th congressional district. In attendance were all of the Democratic candidates who will appear on the ballot for the May 17th primary. Frontrunner Summer Lee and Steve Irwin joined the town hall over Zoom, while Jerry Dickinson, Jeff Woodward, and William Parker were present at the Center for Media Innovation. The town hall was moderated by UVU's Colton DeBias and Nicole Kapalko. Questions ranged from the candidates' views on the war in Ukraine to their solutions for the opioid epidemic here in Western PA. The town hall can be found on the Point Park CMI YouTube page. The Pittsburgh police are making changes to try to make their police force more adaptable for any kind of call they may get. Reporter Addie Deal has more details on what this special force will bring.
A program that dispatches social workers instead of police officers in certain situations is beginning to be more widespread in the Pittsburgh area. An initiative that began in 2021 with past Mayor Bill Peduto's Health, Safety, and Violence Prevention Initiative is now expanding with support from police officers in the local areas. Police Chief Scott Schubert said, quote, "We've been asked to do things we haven't been trained to do. We'll do our best, but we don't have the training for it. There is not enough training for us to be experts at everything," end quote. Chief Schubert held a community meeting at First United Methodist Church in Shadyside concerning the initiative that included citizens, police officers, political officials, and ministers to provide multiple opinions. The Allegheny Health Network Center for Inclusion Health has been working alongside local police to respond to events that include mental health or homelessness in different police zones, but wishes to expand throughout the city. The plan is to be based on a similar response system in Colorado, which has mental health workers and paramedics responding to certain 911 calls instead of police officers. No solid plans have been made yet, but the notion will continue to be discussed.
After 5 months, the City Council has passed a ban on a specific item that will affect shoppers in the coming years. San Hyman has more details about what changes will be made and when.
Last November, Pittsburgh Councilwoman Erica Strasburger introduced the City Council to the potential of banning single-use plastic bags in businesses. Now, an amended version of the legislation is moving on to a final vote. Though the bill did not go through extensive changes, one change is that instead of being placed into effect after 180 days, there will be a full year before the ban becomes enforced. Businesses have the option to switch to paper bags or reusable bags that they can sell or give out to customers. However, the bill does provide necessary exceptions for packaging bulk items that require insulation, such as fruits and meats, as well as for garbage collection and pet waste. Pet Environment, who helped to advocate for the legislation, claims that the change could reduce more than 108 million plastic bags from entering the city's stream of waste. If passed, the bill will go into effect on April 12, 2023.
Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Dwayne Hawkins has died. The 24-year-old was walking along the westbound lane of Interstate 595 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on Saturday, April 9th, when he was struck by a dump truck. It is unclear why Hawkins was walking on the interstate, though some speculate that his vehicle had broken down and he was walking to get help. NFL players and fans have expressed their grief on social media. Steelers coach Mike Tomlin said in a tweet, quote, "Dwayne was a great teammate, but even more so, a tremendous friend to so many. I am truly heartbroken," end quote. Investigations into how exactly this tragedy occurred is ongoing. A head-on collision took place on Tuesday, April 5th along Interstate 79 in Butler County between a police SUV and another vehicle. The police SUV was being driven by New Swickley Township Officer Gregory Carney, and the other vehicle was being driven by a 68-year-old woman from Erie. Carney was driving on South I-97 when he lost control of his vehicle and went across the median, hitting the other vehicle, which was northbound. Both of the vehicles were significantly damaged, and I-79 was closed between exits 88 and 96 until 10:45 p.m. Both drivers sustained major injuries but are both safe now. Carney was taken by an ambulance to Allegheny General Hospital and was treated and released. The woman was flown to UPMC Presbyterian Hospital, where she currently is in stable condition. Coming up after the break, we're going to have your weekly weather Pittsburgh forecast with Craig Frykowski. Is the weather finally here to stay? Nope, go back. Is the good weather finally here to stay? Okay. Coming up after the break, we're going to have your weekly weather Pittsburgh forecast with Craig Frykowski. Is the good weather finally here to stay? Find out soon. We'll be right back.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, and welcome back to NewsNight. Most of the student body of the Pittsburgh Public School.
Some of the United States allies.
Thursday, the FBI was seen raiding.
Let's get started with today's forecast.
Today's high will only reach about 31 degrees.
It's looking a little cooler than we've seen in the past few weeks.
All this and more
All this and more
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
coming up on NewsNight.
coming up on NewsNight.
This week has brought up some weather of every kind, from sun and rain to warm days and snow. Craig Frykowski has all the details about what you can expect from this week's weather.
Thanks, Aaron. Let's look at tomorrow's forecast. Tomorrow is looking to be cool and 65 degrees. There's a 57% chance of rain that will interrupt periods of sunshine. There will be a little bit of rain in the morning, but it should clear up later in the day. At night, the temperature is going to drop to the low 40s. It will be cloudy at night with around 45% cloud cover. So not too cold, but definitely not as warm as earlier this week. Now let's take a look at the rest of the week. The highest temperature we're going to see is Friday at 66 degrees. The rest of the week will be in the high 40s to low 50s. We'll be lucky to see that Sunday is mostly sunny though. This weekend we'll get some good weather for spring break. The beginning of the week will be cloudy with some rain showers. That's all I have for you. Back to you, Aaron.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of NewsNight. If you want to see more, check out our social media pages on both Facebook and Instagram at UView Television. You can also catch clips of our shows live on the CW Pittsburgh on Saturdays. I'm Aaron Ute, and from everyone here at NewsNight, thank you for watching and have a great evening.